now yes, let's go into consciousness. And I'll just give a quick summary of my version of this, okay, so that Hans can continue with his version of it. And here's, let's put this in the center again. Put it here. Okay, so I'm saying consciousness does not belong in physics. A lot of people bring it in physics, and I feel like grabbing a baseball bat and bashing their heads over, okay? It's an attempt to introduce observers into physics. In science, we have no observers. In physics, we have no observers. No testimony, no witnesses, okay? No opinions. Physics is objective. Objective is what comes out of the screen, what comes out of the event, okay? The phenomenon, that's objective. What people visualize, what they understood, that's something else. That's subjective. Product of atoms, molecules, and cells. That's what consciousness is. It's a product that happens in the brain, okay? There's no consciousness without cells. Okay, I'm saying the cell is the origin of that. Okay, and it's individual. The individual, whatever he's got in his brain, whether it's a turtle, a fish, or whatever, it's whatever in their brain. That's where the consciousness has to be studied inside that hermetic box, right? And it's an electrochemical and magnetic process. That's what I'm saying that consciousness is a product of those cells that they move in there, right? Mm-hmm. It's not outside the brain. There's no consciousness out here. The consciousness is in there, and it's in the individual. Okay, in the brain of the individual, that's where it's created. It's not out here. You can't send consciousness to someone else or read someone's mind, as they say. No, consciousness is here what you interpret as something, that concerns only you. And it's not universal, it's not crowd, it's not aggregate. You can't say that the sum of the consciences of every human being on Earth makes the consciousness of Earth, or the consciousness of all the Klingons and Martians and all the other ETs out there is the consciousness of the universe.
I would debate that.
Okay. But I'm saying it's inside the individual.
Objection.
Okay. That's my, and then so therefore planets, stars, galaxies, whatever forms the universe, right, does not have a universal consciousness, which is what the subject matter is about, whether Father Universe has a conscience. And then proponents of Father Universe that say that there is a consciousness, that Father Universe has a consciousness or is conscious or whatever, have the burden of explaining the mechanism of consciousness. What creates consciousness?
Don't delete that one.
Okay.
Let's drag it off. Don't delete it.
Oh, don't delete it. Okay. I'll put it
right
right down. Okay. Let's bring it down here. Now, the ball's in your court.
You said, I would agree with a lot of that. In fact, let's put it back up so I can dispute them.
Okay.
Attempt to introduce observer makes sense. I've noticed often when philosophy or science or physics is being done, observers are kind of dragged into the mix far too often or at all. When you can do the only observer that's really necessary is the person who's doing the thinking, the person who's trying to visualize it, but that doesn't make them an observer or anyone else an observer. It's just so that you understand it, but you're not putting any people into the theory to make the theory work. That's what we mean by introducing observers.
Okay.
Product of atoms, molecules, cells, yes. No consciousness without cells, we'll see. Individual kind of makes sense, but I guess I'll just fast forward to the aggregate. The crowd, aggregate, universal part. Now you can take it down.
Okay.
So would you not say that you said a cell has consciousness?
Well,
a cell.
Here, I think I put it here. Let's put this one up there. Here's the cell. Yeah, a bunch of cells inside the brain. Let's assume that's all inside the brain. This is what produces consciousness. Consciousness, you say, but consciousness is abstract. It's not a thing, right? And I can't hold it in my hand. No, consciousness obviously is a process.
Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, okay. So I'm saying this is what's inside the brain. Something like this is a microcosm of the brain, right? A little piece of it.
Neuron?
Yeah, neurons there, whatever we got in there. And I'm saying what's involved here is electrochemical reactions, one, and the other one is, I say, magnetism. Like between two neurons, I'm saying you have this magnetism. What is magnetism? Under the rope model, it's a swinging around of many threads, right? So magnetism plays a role here. It's all invisible. Why? Because we can't see the threads, right? They'll never be able to see the threads or touch the threads. This is a conceptual issue. You can only visualize it. But what I'm saying is, here's where consciousness has its origin, in the cells of the brain. And I'm saying without this, you have no consciousness. Okay?
In fact, I'd like to add that because we talked, you really put something very clearly into perspective when we were talking about this the other day. You said you were comparing consciousness as a phenomenon
Of fire.
to fire. And I really like that because it makes a lot of sense, where there's no physical object called fire. Fire is just what we see. I mean, it has a shape when we see it, but it's not. There isn't a thing there. It's just
a combustion.
It's a process. It's a process of combusting atoms, and in the same way, I think in every single way that matches to what consciousness is.
Yeah.
Maybe not a combustion, but a type of chemical reaction between carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen. It's a specific reaction that these chemicals, in a very complex way, are doing that give this illusion, kind of like fire. So it's a process. It's what you would call a dynamic concept. It's a happening. You can't take a screenshot of consciousness.
Right.
Just like you can't. I mean,
Well, you can take a picture of fire. We call it fire. That thing
Yeah,
there.
but
But what you're really taking a picture of is flame. Flame is the
it's just
the bright part, right?
It's just
we call it flame,
but it's just the broken light of these combusting particles. It's
Right.
not a thing. There isn't anything there. If
Right.
anything, we're making the distinction.
right. What you're seeing is a combination of oxygen with carbon, right? And you have this oxidation process, and we call that oxidation. Well, we realize that that's what gives us that light we call flame, right? But the point is, fire is not a thing. It's a process.
That's the
And
big
unless
thing.
you really think about that,
It's like the tide of in a water.
right.
There's no such thing as a tide.
Wave, as a wave.
As a wave, yeah, sorry. If you have a wave, there's no
Right.
such thing as a wave. It's just a specific shape of water that we call wave.
Right.
And just like that, consciousness is a specific chemical reaction that we call consciousness.
Right.
That's the weird thing.
And one of the things you got to do, if you want to talk about consciousness, you got to define the word, okay? So here we find the definition of consciousness, the official. Okay, this is from the Wikipedia, if I can find it again. What did I do with it? Here it is.
Consciousness.
Yeah, here it is.
Holy crap.
It says consciousness at its simplest is awareness of internal and external existence. That's essentially it. Okay, and then they go in there that they have all these opinions out there about all these these philosophers, theologians, scientists. They have all opinions of what consciousness is. But I like I think it's the last statement. The disparate range of research, notions, and speculation raises a curiosity about whether the right questions are being asked.
Yeah. I
So
like
you-
that.
yeah,
Are
you-
we even asking the right question?
Yeah, and so consciousness is a big monster.
But I never-
partly because we haven't answered.
What it
We
is.
haven't defined the thing really very well. They say it's awareness.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And then you have here theories of consciousness that they came up with. These are theories, okay? You have materialism, which is the one that physics takes essentially. Consciousness is purely a product of physical processes in the brain. Period. We're done. No more talk about consciousness as far as physics is concerned. But they have all these other ones like dualism, created by my friend Rene Descartes. It says mind and body are two distinct what? Substances. No, mind is not a substance, and that's the problem when they use these words. No, you can't even say mind and body are two different things. Body is a thing, mind is a concept. Okay, and we have to distinguish those words. Then they have panpsychism. And what is that? Consciousness is a universal ingredient, the mind of Father Universe, present even in the tiniest particles.
That's something that I would actually argue for.
No,
Keep that one. I like panpsychism.
Okay, and then so they're saying that even the particles have consciousness.
Because I think where that comes from is when they say consciousness can't come from unconscious things.
Yeah, I know. It's
so
like
therefore, there's
Yeah, but that's like
consciousness
saying-
all the way through. Is what they're
But that's like saying life cannot come from inanimate matter.
Yeah.
And it did.
And
In
it
fact,
did. Yeah, it did.
Then you have the quantum, people say that quantum processes in the brain generate consciousness, and that's Roger Penrose is one of the champions of that notion. Then you had consciousness is an illusion. There is no such thing as consciousness, according to some people. Doesn't exist. It's the brain's way of making sense of various neural processes inside our heads.
But I'd agree with that.
Okay, yeah. So we have all these versions, right? Whether consciousness is really something by itself. In other words, if consciousness was, for example, I'll just give an example, made of atoms, right? Then you can say, well, there it is. There's consciousness, right? But then that means it exists outside of the brain. It's not only inside the brain, it's also out here. And I'm saying that's irrational for the purposes of physics. You cannot say that.
I would actually argue that when they're saying consciousness and awareness can't come from unaware things and therefore it must go all the way through, I'd compare it to the fire one again. Just because something is burnable doesn't mean it's always on fire. Just because CNOH can produce consciousness doesn't mean that it is always conscious.
Yeah, but
just because carbon can be set aflame doesn't mean it's always on fire.
But unless you have that combustion process, you don't have fire. And the question is, do you have consciousness without the atoms or cells or molecules or whatever?
It's just like fire. You need that specific combination. You need a specific pattern. There's many different
which
forms.
Which means it has an origin there in that matter.
Yeah, but only in that shape. It's like if you break it up, there's no consciousness anymore.
Right. But my point is, again, it has to have origin in matter, because the only thing that exists, according to Democritus and this site, is matter and empty space. Matter being energy, which is the rho, right?
Empty space doesn't exist.
Right. Well, but I mean, you need these two. You got to treat in that definition. You got to treat space as a physical object. You're making an assumption that it's a thing, right? You're saying atoms and empty space, and that's in that sense, Democritus was close to the reality of what we say here is. Here you have one fellow, and he says the following. He says the universe is pure materialist. Okay, great. We love that. But it says physics is the product of the mind.
Yeah,
we have a contradiction. Either it's materialist or product of the mind. Have we created the universe with our mind? Is our thinking what the universe is, or was the universe there before we came aboard? And so he says science is also the product of mind. Science or physics is how mind has understood and described the pure materialist universe. Mind is a reality. Well, unless you define reality, we have no idea what you mean by, mind is a reality. You have to define the word reality. The word reality is a synonym of existence, and existence is matter that has location. Object that has location.
Would you? Oh no, I was going to ask about electricity. Does that have location? I guess electricity just like
it's a concept.
Just like flame.
It's a process, right?
Yeah, true.
Science is about explanations, he says. Okay, great. But then he says causation does not apply to mind. Okay? But he says something interesting here. He said, mind or consciousness is not the domain of physical laws. Right. Consciousness can easily overrule physical laws. And what he means by this, he says, consciously, it is possible to do such thought experiments that are physically impossible, which is totally correct. You can dream up any theory you want. You can even think about, irrational stuff, like four-dimensional space-time. You can come up with anything, but that doesn't relate to the real world of physics. Okay, and so this is what he's saying. The consciousness, in that sense, he's trying to say that encompasses physics. And the answer from me is no, you can't. Consciousness, the fact that you can dream up or think about, or your mind creates stuff that doesn't really exist, that doesn't make it part of physics. Physics only deals with what exists. In fact, physics is the science of existence. So anything you can dream up outside of that does not belong to physics. And this is what this fellow was saying, essentially.
I never got around to asking you about the amalgam, because that was my gripe with the properties of consciousness that you laid out at the beginning. You said it is only in an individual, not in an amalgam.
Right.
But if cells have consciousness, then their consciousness, the combined consciousness of all our cells make up a new consciousness, which would be me. So in a way, there is an amalgam conscious. But I don't know if you can apply that then to if you count all the humans, making that a human consciousness. These different amalgams of consciousness.
Well, that's why I think it's absolutely important to define the word consciousness. And what I mean by this is the following.
Yeah.
Life, as far as this side is concerned, right? Life is motion against gravity. Life is that which goes against the path of least resistance, can do so, okay? So we call that life. Life, the first living entity, is the cell.
Yeah.
The question is whether the cell has first intelligence, and the second part is whether the cell has consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'm saying the cell does not have consciousness. It has intelligence. Intelligence, what do I mean by intelligence? Intelligence means a CPU, a central point that can govern compartmentalized regions. So,
I see what you mean.
So if the cell is a unit that has all these subunits, the cell is the first entity that can organize and make each unit do something. We still don't have consciousness. What we have is compartmentalization, which is intelligence. We do not. We have life because it moves. We have intelligence because it's compartmentalized segments. But we still don't have consciousness. Consciousness requires many cells acting in some kind of combination. Now it creates this thingy we call consciousness, which is a process again, not a thing.
I like that. You're saying,
and I'll show you a couple graphs here will make my point very clear. This is the first one.
But you're saying cells have intelligence but no consciousness. I like that. That makes sense.
Okay, so here's the first picture. Just a picture. Can consciousness exist outside of the head? And I'm saying no. The individual is the one who produces consciousness inside his head. That's where the awareness, so-called, is, right? You don't have awareness outside of the brain. In other words, the awareness itself. You're aware of things outside you, yes, but you're aware inside your head. You're not. The consciousness does not penetrate the walls of your brain and go outside your head. That's what I'm saying. That's the first one.
The spiritualist would have a word with you.
Yeah, and then the most important one is this one here, and this one should blow everybody's head away. Okay, here it is. Okay, here's Father Universe. Okay, Father Universe only exists; he does not live. Okay, Father Universe is all the atoms in the universe, and all the atoms in the universe only have location. Okay, the universe is a static concept. In other words, there's no motion. So if you want motion, you need two motions of two locations of an object. You need two frames of the movie. Consciousness requires two frames of the movie at least. So Father Universe would have to be in two frames of the universe in order to have consciousness. But Father Universe is only atoms, and they only have location.
What's Father Universe?
Father Universe, all the atoms in the universe.
Oh.
Every atom in the universe, all matter, right? We call that Father Universe. So every atom in the universe, but only has location. If you want to see motion, you have to go to a second frame. You have to have two frames. But Father Universe, he goes into this eternal mode where he only has existence. He only has distance between every atom. That's all he is.
He doesn't have that though.
No, but that's all Father Universe is.
He doesn't even have that because.
What do you mean?
Because what does Father Universe in this? You're saying if Father Universe is all the matter in the universe,
yeah,
then it has no location because there's
not the matter has location. Well, I'm saying every atom that forms Father Universe, you know, every atom only has location in a cross section of time, in a cross section of motion. There is no motion. There's only location. There's only distance between atoms. So far, we have a static universe. Yeah. Father Universe only is static, right? If you want to have motion, if you want Father Universe to move, you have to go to a second frame, and every atom now moves to a different location with respect to all others. So that's what we call motion inside the universe. But Father Universe is only, he doesn't have consciousness because Father Universe would have to have many frames to have consciousness. And Father Universe is only a static. It's all the atoms at some point in the universe. That's all it is. And so I'm saying that, Father Universe cannot have consciousness because he would need to have more than one frame, and Father Universe is eternal. He's eternal because he only has location. That's why he's eternal. We see motion. Father Universe never sees motion. He always goes to sleep back again, wakes up at the next frame and says, "Oh, I have every atom is at a different location now." That's all he sees. He's always in location. He doesn't see more than that. So he
kind of lost me. What's the point?
My point is that Father Universe cannot have you cannot have this universal or global consciousness, because consciousness is a dynamic concept, whereas Father Universe is a static concept. All atoms is with location. The location is a static concept. Father Universe does not recognize motion. Okay? Father Universe only exists.
Let's stick with global. Can there be global consciousness?
You still didn't understand. Okay. I got it. For it to be global consciousness requires what? Let's show it again. I don't know if this sinks in or whatever. Consciousness is on the bottom. See, the top ones are static concepts. Object, distance, location, and existence are all static.
Yeah.
The ones on the bottom, motion, position, and mathematical position, right, which is motion. Plasma, ether, all these are dynamic concepts. Yeah. Consciousness is a dynamic concept. There's no such thing as...
It's a happening.
It's a happening.
You can't take a screenshot of it.
So I need at least 2 frames of the movie, of the universal movie.
Yeah.
But Father Universe only exists in a single frame as far as Father Universe is concerned, not us. Us, we see motion, we see time, we see all these dynamic concepts. Father Universe does not recognize any dynamic concept. Father Universe is only all the atoms at a distance from all others for a location, what is called location, single frame of the film. That's all that Father Universe is. Okay, Father Universe does not include the motion from one frame to the other. Father Universe goes to sleep eternally in one frame, then he wakes up in another. Suddenly all the atoms are in a different location. So Father Universe does not recognize motion, therefore he cannot have consciousness, which requires at least 2 frames of the movie. Okay, that's my argument. Father Universe is a static concept. Okay, atoms at a given distance with respect to each other. It's humans who put motion and time and all these things in there. Mother Nature doesn't recognize any of that. She's only in a single frame of the film. Eternal. There's no past, no future as far as Father Universe is concerned. He only exists in the present mode, meaning eternally. He's always in eternal.
But if all the matter in the universe is moving, so there's a process, right?
We say it's moving. Father Universe doesn't recognize. But if I take a snapshot of the universe, of Father Universe, all I see is location.
Yeah, but if all the matter is moving, like you said, with respect to each other, isn't that a process that could generate thought? Assuming,
obviously it could, but my point here is that Father Universe himself does not recognize thought, because as far as Father, at any point in time, every atom in the universe, you're not creating new atoms.
Yeah.
Every atom is just moving to a new location, correct?
That's fine.
So for any cross-section of time, any cross-section of motion, all you have is location. What is motion? 2 or more locations. Yeah. But we only have one location for every atom in the universe at any point in time, at any point in motion, at any point in location, in a single frame of the film. There's only distance between atoms.
But what's the difference between that and if you take a screenshot of all the atoms in my brain? You'd also have no consciousness.
Right. If I take a snapshot of all your atoms in your brain,
if you just took that, there would be no consciousness.
Correct. You got it.
Okay. But then why can't universe have consciousness?
No, because my point here is that if physics deals with snapshots to begin with.
Yeah, let's start there. It's just to simplify.
The objects, right? The things. Yeah. And so you take a snapshot of what is there. That's all that Father Universe is. All the atoms in the universe, snapshot. Static concept. Now, in order to have consciousness, you need motion. You need for every atom to move to the next frame, and so on down the line. You need a whole bunch of frames to create consciousness. In fact, many of them. Yeah. And so I'm saying, if I take a snapshot of your brain, a 3D snapshot, right? We got this 3D.
And you can zoom in as much as you want to see the atoms wherever you want.
If I freeze your brain right there, you have no consciousness there. We cannot talk about consciousness yet. In order to see consciousness or conceptualize consciousness, I would need, motion, time, etc. Right? I need some movement in there. And what I'm saying, You can do that with a human brain, but you can't do it with Father Universe because Father Universe is only atoms.
Why do you say that? Why is
Father Universe that concept.
But why is Father Universe only a screenshot if I am a process?
Father Universe, because every atom in the universe can only have location with respect to each other, and that location is a static concept. And we have to look at the universe as a cross-section of time or a cross-section of motion. In other words, you took a snapshot, that's Father Universe. Yeah, Father Universe is not a process. Father Universe is a snapshot.
Why make that distinction?
Because it's important. It's a very important tool to use for people to stop, rolling their brains around talking about things that have motion and introducing them as physical objects. No, Father Universe is a snapshot.
Hold on.
It's a snapshot.
If the universe is moving...
If I take a snapshot of you, that's you.
No, if you take a snapshot of my brain, I'm not there anymore, like you said. The consciousness is gone.
Yeah, but whether I take it of your brain or I take it of you, I say this is a picture of you, right? This is you. That picture, I can't say you is you moving. You're not
But
moving.
if someone films me and people would...
That's not you. You, not an object. The object is the static one. That's you, the snapshot.
That's a confusing distinction.
I know, and we have to make that distinction because people roll their brains around so much and they confuse the motion which we are used to every day with what is. If you want to talk about existence, you have to talk about object plus location. That's it. That's existence. And Father Universe only exists.
But hold on.
He doesn't move. He doesn't live.
But if we're talking about universal consciousness, because that's what the topic is.
Yeah.
Whether if all the atoms in my brain generate consciousness, could it be possible that all the matter in the universe generates its own consciousness? And if consciousness is a process, forget snapshots. We're not talking about snapshots because the whole question is about the dynamic concept of consciousness, a happening, a fire.
And I don't disagree with you there. All I'm saying is that Father Universe is a snapshot.
Forget Father Universe.
No,
we're not even going to talk about Father Universe anymore.
But I like Father Universe. He's my father.
But if Ans's consciousness is a process, why can't we talk about the universe's consciousness as a process?
Because we conceptualize motion, not Father Universe. Father Universe is only atoms at a location. Existence. Existence is object plus location.
I hope you guys get it because I don't.
It's a static concept, and people have a lot of trouble with that because we're so used to motion, like we're used to saying that an object is that which we can see or touch.
No.
But this is the same thing.
But if consciousness is a process, then you can't remove motion to explain it.
No, totally in agreement. I'm saying that Father Universe doesn't have motion.
But then let's not remove motion. Therefore, let's not talk about Father Universe because
you don't like Father Universe.
Well, but you're saying he implies immobility. You're saying if we're going to talk about Father Universe, you're saying we can't talk about motion. Well, but if the question is about motion, then you can't talk about Father Universe. Forget him.
If one of the issues, parallel issue, which I think might put it in the right context, is that people talk about going to the past, travel to the past or to the future, right? Yeah. And I'm saying you can't do that. That's in the religion of general relativity. That's not in rational science. Why? Because Father Universe doesn't recognize the past or the future. Father Universe is always in the present, always eternally in the present. Yeah.
There is only the present.
Right. So you can't move to this other universe which we humans conceptualize. We say, oh, Napoleon was there and Caesar was over there and Alexander the Great was over there. We have that in our brains, in our books, and whatever recording device, but we cannot go there because that Father Universe has the atoms are only at one now. No, but the atoms are now at a different location with respect to each other. They have a different pattern in the universe, right? Because everything moved, right? And so that pattern no longer exists in the days of Napoleon, because if it did, that means we're creating new atoms as we go along. We always have new atoms being created instead of new locations. And so we can't go back to the past. We can't go to the future. And that's important to conceptualize this consciousness issue. It means that when we talk about consciousness, you're saying, I have this movie. I have this movie of what this guy thought. Let's say that he's awake and he saw something, whatever, he had an experience, right? Father Universe doesn't recognize that whole movie. He only recognizes photos. He only exists in the present. He doesn't live over time, over motion. And so.
But if we can talk about a movie of my brain, why can't we just zoom out and make a movie of the universe?
We can.
That's what we're doing.
We can.
Let's.
Yeah.
Then let's. Okay.
Yeah, okay. But what I'm saying, we can talk about humans having consciousness, but Father Universe says, hey, I don't recognize, I'm always, static. I only have distance. And when you talk about motion and time, and you talk about
The
consciousness, now
film.
you're saying it's a film. Yeah, the movie is a film, but Father Nature is only in a single frame. And then in the next frame, you can put him again, but he only is a snapshot of that frame, right? In order to see consciousness, you need the Father Universe in all the frame. That means he still exists in this other frame. Father Universe doesn't recognize the previous or the future frames. He only recognizes the single frame he's in. That's my point. Anyways, I hope you understood something. You're the jury. Here's the prosecutor. Here's the defense attorney, or vice versa. I don't care, but we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.